Hi, and welcome to my FlossTube channel. I'm Jean Farish, and I'm so glad that you're here with me today. We are going to talk about scale. As cross-stitchers, you're very familiar with the process of taking the dimensions of a design, the number of stitches across and down, and once you've chosen your fabric and you know how many stitches you get per inch, then you divide that number into the across and down numbers to figure out how big the design is going to be. And then you add extra fabric around the edges for finishing, or to be able to attach it to a frame or a Q-snap or whatever. And again, that's just, the first step in starting a cross-stitch project. And so when you stitch a design on, say, 14 stitches the inch, and your friend stitches the same design on 16 stitches per inch, or 20 stitches per inch, then their outcome will be much smaller than what you did. And again, we're pretty familiar with that. But I want to talk about scale going in the other direction. We seemed so much as an industry focused on stitching on finer and finer and finer count fabrics. And again, that's a wonderful accomplishment. But what if you want to have more impact? What if it's a design that you're not going to be looking at eye level? What if it's something like a tree skirt? So I teased you a little bit with this last week. This is a tree skirt that I designed quite a while ago. I frankly don't remember when. There are, let me see if I can show the whole thing. There are 3 pair of skating reindeer and some snow-laden trees in between. And it basically covers about 3/4 of this circular tree. This is done on 6 count Herta. So the whole tree skirt, including the finishing space, is about 42 inches in diameter. So it takes the full width of the Herta. I think Herta is somewhere between 42 and 44 inches wide as it comes off the bolt. So to do this, you would need the length that is cut needs to be the same as the width of the fabric. So, but that's kind of getting into the mechanics of making the tree skirt. I want to talk more about the principle of scale. This same design done on 14 count fabric and made into a tree skirt would have been teeny tiny. It just would not have had the same impact. Or as a designer, if I had designed it with a finer fabric in mind, then there would have been a whole lot more stitching around the outside edge. So when this tree skirt is in place, on the floor or even as a tabletop, then it's not something that you're looking at eye level. And so it does not seem out of proportion to do it on 6 stitches to the inch. Now, I also stitched one of the skating reindeer as an ornament, and I don't know where it is. I need to find this. I do have a little picture though, and so I'm gonna show that on the screen so you can see it a little bit better than my little teeny tiny photo here. This was done on perforated paper. It's the exact same reindeer as this one. So let's do the math. On that particular reindeer, on the 6 count Herta, is 11.5 inches high. Stitched on 14 count perforated paper, which I'm pretty sure what I used, it's just under 5 inches high. So more than twice as large. Same number of stitches. The design isn't any different. Both were used, both of them followed the same chart. If I had done it on 16 count fabric and finished it, it would have just been, it would have been less than 4.5 inches high. So again, that just shows you a difference in the scale between designs. So think not just about looking at the stitches across and down in terms of how big to cut your fabric, but also in terms of the impact that you want to have with the design. Another Christmas design that I can use for the same example is the C is for Christmas, which many of you saw that I had it up here on my shelf. And that again is done on 16 count Herta, and the pillow form that I used is either 11 or 12 inches square for that pillow. If I did the same design on 14 count fabric, the design itself would have just been 4.5 inches by about 5 3/4 inches tall. And in fact, I did stitch it originally and made it into a basket to hold Christmas cards. Now this is from, golly, what's the copyright date on this one? This one's from 1983. So, and again, same design, 2 different purposes, and you can see how different it is. One of the things that I designed, again, many moons ago, in fact, I want to say this was like maybe the 3rd book that I published, is this weather vane horse. But I also wanted something to put in my home that was kind of a centerpiece. And so I stitched, again, the exact same design, same number of stitches on Floba, which is 18 threads to the inch, and I stitched it over 2. And you can see that I ended up with a framed item that can become a focal point in a living room or a den or, you know, wherever. So again, same design, same number of stitches, different scale, different purpose. The little box was done 22 stitches to the inch, and then the framed one is 9 stitches to the inch. So again, you can see the difference in scale between the two. While I had the tree skirt out, another little footnote is when we were talking about backstitch and long stitch. And here is an example. Can't get my camera to start. And here is an example where I did the fringe as long stitch. And I didn't even worry too much about pulling it taut. I guess if I pulled it out like this, it would be straighter. But it really gives the feeling of the fringe on a scarf. Meanwhile, one of the other things I brought out last week in talking about backstitching was my down home Christmas ABC stocking. And I got some inquiries about it, so I rummaged around and found a supply that was still sitting around. These are the original publications, and so I've added them to my Etsy store. Last time I checked, there were a couple dozen left. Not many more than that, and when they're gone, they're gone. I will make it into a PDF, but that won't be until next year. So they're priced as a flat price, so that includes the booklet and priority mail to U.S. addresses. And I apologize in advance that I'm limiting where I can send them to. Right now, I'm trying to really shelter in place at home as much as possible. And right now, standing in line at the post office is something I really don't want to do. So in order to have a U.S. Postal Service carrier come to my home and pick up the orders, they need to be in these priority envelopes, and they need to be to U.S. addresses. So next year, we'll have it as a PDF. You know, I love it when stitchers share their stitching experiences with me, either directly in email or comments here on FlossTube or in Facebook groups. And recently, a stitcher by the name of Mary shared this photo of not one, but 2 of the Down Home Christmas ABC stockings done. And she went on to explain that she did one originally for her son, and then stitched the second one for a grandchild. So I think that that's just, you know, amazing that she stitched this 36-inch long stocking twice. Another Christmas themed idea that came my way was from Tara, and she shared the fact that she's taking the state designs from America Land that we love and doing the individual states as Christmas ornaments and giving them to loved ones for the states that they live in or states that have meaning to them in some way. So I thought that that was really a clever idea also, and I wanted to share that with you. I wanted to keep this episode fairly short because I have a lot on my plate right now this time of the year, as I'm sure that you do as well, trying to get some things finished and getting ready to start some Christmas cookie baking. But I did want to share this question that came from, and I hope I'm saying her name right, Lise, Lise. So forgive me if I am absolutely, totally mispronouncing your name. She said, thank you so much for this video on the backstitch and long stitch. One question that I have is, looking at my pattern, how can I tell if I must do a longer backstitch, like the example you showed in the bonnet, where it's like crossing over diagonally over several stitches, or the long stitch, for example, in the hen pattern, which was the straw that the hen is nesting on. I must say this confuses me a lot. So here is my answer. I said that I hope that in my designs that I make it clear in the written directions which stitch to use, whether you're using an elongated backstitch or whether you're actually doing a long stitch. I wish that there were some sort of industry standard, which sadly there is not. And I wish it were kind of a requirement that designers would make it clear. But when the designer doesn't state which one to use, this is where I think that the stitcher needs to look at the photo of the finished project and then use your own judgment. So ask yourself, is it defining a space? Is it like an outline? In which case I would use the backstitch. Is it representing an object like straw or grass or a kite string? In that case, I would use the long stitch. In general, I feel like there needs to be more collaboration between you, the stitcher, and whatever designer designed the project that you are working on. I very often see comments made in online groups that there are no rules in cross stitch. And you know how I feel about this. There are best practices, but that doesn't mean that there isn't room for you, the stitcher, to add your own element or your own interpretation to the design. If your common sense is saying, this looks like straw, this looks like a string, this looks like a rope, and so you want to see what it would look like as a long stitch, then by all means do that, even if the designer said it's backstitch. So this is where I think that it's not only perfectly okay, but I would really encourage you to put something of yourself into your designs that you're stitching. Don't feel like you have to do it one certain way, because that takes part of the fun out of it. As I mentioned a moment ago, I've been busy with finishing some handmade Christmas presents. And this weekend starts the great Farish Christmas bake-off with one contestant, and that's me, and lots of judges, which is anybody who comes along to taste the cookies. But there are several recipes that I've made every Christmas for absolutely decades. And even though we are sheltering in place and we are not going to have a house full of guests, I still feel like I want to make as many as I normally do, I'll just freeze them and we'll enjoy them going into January or however long it lasts. Because I just made up my mind this Christmas that I'm not going to do less just because of the restrictions that are in place. And I really just want to encourage you as well that even though we're facing restrictions, and nobody likes them, it doesn't mean that we can't be making new memories. This can still be a joyous Christmas season. And I fully intend to embrace it and enjoy it. I feel like that if we don't learn something from what's going on around us, then we are doomed to repeat it over and over and over again. And as I feel like, frankly, that we just need to buckle down and do the simple things. We need to wear our mask. We need to wash our hands when we come back from being out and about. We need to stay 6 feet away from people around us. We need to pick our times to go to the store when there are going to be fewer people around. We need to embrace the fact that stores are limiting the number of people that are on their premises, and just not mind waiting. Order more things for curbside pickup. Do whatever you can do to do your part. We need to do this for our friends. We need to do it for our family, but we also need to do it for strangers. We need to do it for people we don't know and probably will never meet. Because if we don't, this is just going to go on forever. We need to take care. We need to do these things that seem hard to us now, because believe me, they're not as hard as some of the alternatives. And you know that. This is my hope for all of us, that we do the things that are hard now so that we can celebrate together next year. I want all of you to still be around. I want all of you to be healthy this time next year so that we can truly look back on this experience and say, see, we got through it and we're okay. Between now and next week, I hope you stitch happy and stay safe.